Back to the Integrate Intelligently podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Brickler, again accompanied today by my brother and CEO of CADTALK software founder, Scott Brickler. Scott, really exciting news today to announce, but good to see you after quite a bit of travel that you and I had.
Oh yeah. I think I was gone for like 9 days straight. Just got back last night, so it was a long travel. Started in Quebec, so which is kind of leads into the conversation today.
Yeah, I think I was gone additionally, not the same travel as you, but some overlap. I was gone 8 or 10 days, something like that, and on the West Coast, and I was ready to fly back home to the East Coast, get back to my bed and a nice sleep environment. So, well, we're good. So Scott, today we're going to talk about the future of CAD and engineering integration with ERP, and so we have some really outstanding news. So would you like to let the listeners know what that news is, or would you like me?
Sure. Take the honors, please.
So after some work, and some negotiations and processes, CADTALK likes to announce that we have acquired a competitor in the CAD, PDM, PLM integration space, Elmo Solutions. So now CADTALK and Elmo are one organization under the CADTALK brand. So Scott, what are your thoughts about having just completed this acquisition?
Oh, it was neat. I think it's a really cool step in the direction that we were looking to go. I mean, we want to be the leading player, or the leading integration for the solution for this type of problem in the market. I think, the way that we do that is by expanding into more and more systems to integrate with. And Elmo and the ADDing product was very complementary to what we do, and they have very similar philosophies about how they go to market. So it was really very much a natural fit for us. I mean, we actually didn't run into each other a lot in sales prospects, because they were in different ERPs or different systems. So by coming together, we were able to broaden our base of both CAD and ERP and PLM integrations, which is really how we grow.
Yeah, that's a good point. So just kind of a step back a bit about who CADTALK is. Of course, CADTALK is a leader in the integration between engineering softwares and ERP systems, right? The leading ERP systems. So to your point, we have, I think, 6 or 8 systems that we integrate with. And then I think Elmo Solutions, who produces a product called ADDing, also had, I think, 6 or 8 solutions. And so we really broadened our ability, right? Broadened our offering in terms of supporting many different more ERPs. And so really increasing that footprint in terms of customers we can serve.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when you say like systems, you mean ERP.
Yeah, correct.
The broader sense of integrations is probably 30 or 40 at this stage, but the ERP market systems is kind of the driver for growth, because as you get into each ERP, it opens up because if you don't have both sides of the integration, most customers aren't interested. So we've already, between the two companies, we definitely have all the CAD systems and PDMs and PLMs. It was the ERPs that it really drives the growth.
Right.
Expansion.
Yeah. If you look at all the combinations, or I don't know if it's combinations or permutations, either way, but if you look at all the combinations, it's got to be 40 or 50 or I don't know, maybe hundreds of different combinations. If you count, especially if you have multiple, you have 2 sides, and usually the target side is always ERP, right? And the source side can be multiple different things. So really the number of combinations or permutations, if you will, getting into the weeds a bit there on the mathematics, but just a tremendous number of different combinations we could use, right, for customers to integrate their systems.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that's interesting too is that ADDing solves the problem a little bit differently than we do. I mean, we kind of come at the problem, traditionally we've approached this problem more from the ERP perspective. So I came from the ERP world. I'm just an engineer, so I worked with CAD systems a lot and things like that and PDMs, but most of my experience in the past was from the ERP world, right? So we approach the problem very much, so from the ERP perspective, which has served us well because that's where the data ends up, right? We have to turn the engineering intent into a manufacturing execution, right? That's one of the taglines that we have. And the manufacturing execution typically is in a PLM or ERP, right? And then, so in the ERP side, we've approached the problem that way. Whereas like the AgniLink product is more engineering focused, which is, and they're not that I don't know that we were weak there, but they approach it from a different perspective, which gives, which also is useful, is very useful. So like there are use cases where customers will have that perspective or that need. And it really so it widens our capabilities to serve more customers and serve them in a way that they want to be served. Like traditionally we have, like our integration can work with CADTALK. We can work either in the CAD tool or standalone, right? And not require the engineer to be involved, as more a pull from the engineer's work, but it also could be a push from the engineer, just like that way. But one of the things that we see with the AgniLink product, you see a little bit more focus on the synchronization type of solution where you synchronize these things, which is not something we can do, but we haven't focused on as heavily in the past. So having kind of both perspectives is really good. Because it's not that one way is right or one way is wrong. It depends on your needs and depends on how you approach the problem. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, obviously, CADTALK was founded when you had the idea working in manufacturing, as you said, as a ERP, kind of with a mind toward ERP since 1998. And Elmo's been around. I think Elmo Solutions and AgniLink, I think even longer, right? 30 plus years or a long time. But as you said, you can come at it from one of two ways, either from an ERP perspective, the need for like quality data in the ERP for manufacturing and finance and shop floor work, or you can come at it from an engineering perspective from, not wanting to do the work. I always think about like what our customers' pain points are. You can tell you like who came up with the solution. If you are an ERP person like you who came up with that, you were involved with the downstream effects of the work in engineering, or you ended up getting data dumped on your plate that you had to deal with. Like, hey, here you go, right? Go deal with this. And so that was your experience, right? You were the guy that threw the data over the wall and said, hey, it's your problem now. And then you had to figure out what to do with that and how important it was in the ERP. So there's one perspective, which is what you experienced. And then, of course, there's the other perspective, which is I've seen in some companies where the engineers are tasked with entering the data themselves. Typically, engineers don't want any part of ERP. So I'm imagining that the AgniLink founder imagined that he either had to do it or he was working with customers who the engineers were doing that. And they're going, I don't want to do this, right? I don't want any part of ERP. I'm go back to my design software. And I didn't go to university and learn to design to manually enter data into this ERP system. And so different perspectives, same, pain points, but the driver for solving that pain point was slightly different. But to your point, they both are right. They just complement each other. Both are right and important, but they complement each other.
Yeah. It's like those perspectives kind of shape the problem. And I think that, or shape the solutions. I'm sorry. The problem is still the problem. It just shapes the solution, right? So in the perspective. So I think it's good. I mean, and even more importantly, it's just, and like different markets, as we see, like we say different markets, I mean, different like ERPs, that's usually the target system we consider a market. Those different markets have different needs, right? I mean, like you mentioned, I came from a world where they're, upper mid-market ERP where you have usually larger companies that will have like a manufacturing focus, like a manufacturing engineer. So I worked as a manufacturing engineer, and that is a different perspective than a design engineer. Actually, I've worked as both. I worked as a design engineer and a manufacturing engineer, but the idea came from my time as being a manufacturing engineer. And but if I was a design engineer, actually even early versions of CADTALK actually had more of the similar perspective that AgniLink has, like how they built the product. So because it's a good idea. I mean, really, it's also very straightforward, right? It's this idea of linking things together, right? A little bit more. But at the same time, there's also, there's another perspective too of this kind of a transformation. So there's a lot of, I think there's a lot we can learn from each other, and I'm really excited about that because One of the things I'm really excited because I tend to be I'm a dev guy, right? Originally, I'm a product guy, so I really like seeing. I'm really looking forward to like looking at seeing how somebody else solved the same problem that I've been working with for the last 25 years or whatever, and seeing how they solved it. And I think that's kind of an interesting exercise. I think like as an engineer, you tend to have a very strong opinion about what your beliefs about how things should be solved and things like that. And this has been a really good reminder of that it's just one perspective. It's just one way of looking at something. And maybe because I'm getting older, I'm pushing 50 now, and I'm thinking, yeah, Scott, you're not always right. And that so really, really coming to embrace that idea of strong beliefs held loosely. I have a strong opinion about how things should be done, but I hold them loosely, and I'm open to new ideas. And because at the end of the day, our job is to do the best job for the customers and to solve their problem as best as possible. So always, you have a belief. You have to have a strong belief so you can guide them in the right direction, but still be open to enough to learn something new that you may not have thought of or even heard of before. Because sometimes you can be blind to the customer because you think and sometimes you just don't. Maybe there is something actually unique here that you can learn.
Yeah, I think that's great what you're talking about. It's a great opportunity for us to learn and grow, learn another perspective,
Mm-hmm.
learn from the collective knowledge of both of the new organization, of the new team, to say, hey, what have you experienced, both from a product perspective, but also when talking to customers, of course. Just like us, we have thousands of customers using CADTALK on 6 continents, almost everywhere in the world. They too, Agni Links too, has customers all over the world, 5 or 6 continents. I don't know 100% yet, haven't seen them all, but leveraging those two perspectives and even engineers in Europe and engineering in different parts of the world gives you different perspective about how they see things, what the need are. It's both be interesting from how things are similar and viewpoints, but also different, right? And then be able to learn. I'm really excited about that because it gives us, like you said, a new perspective. It'll be good ideas that we learn from them. And then of course, there'll be ideas that we'll selfishly say, yeah, well, our idea is better here.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Well, I think it's the same thing with like ERP, right? I mean, you have, I was thinking about the like SAP, right? SAP versus maybe like a NetSuite or something like that, or some of these other packages. Like how could all of these different solutions exist and be successful? It's because not all companies have the same need, right? Like a QuickBooks is actually, and we talked about this during the ERP episode, I believe, but like a QuickBooks serves a lot of companies at a certain scale, right? And then you have, and then when you get to like the SAP level ERP, the complexity of the company is different that they're serving. So, and with the flexibility in the product to serve that complexity, also takes on a certain amount of overhead. So people think, well, if I buy SAP for $1 million, it should be easier to create an invoice. Actually, it's like 10 times harder to create an invoice. And that it seems intuitively wrong, but it actually makes a lot of sense because creating an invoice could have, 15 different variables you have to consider. Whereas like in the SAP product would handle all of those. But in the QuickBooks, it's like, no, it just handles simple line items on an invoice and sends it out and lets you pay it. So by assuming away that complexity, they're able to make a simpler product that works faster and serves a different market. And then, so we think of the same thing with like, CADTALK and AgniLink and things like that. There are markets that really benefit from different approaches to the same problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, because we even see it when we integrate to ERPs. Some of the integrations we have are less complex than others. And that's because the target system is less complex. There are just fewer areas where we can integrate, fewer places, fewer data, fewer collections or objects that we can connect to. And so as a result, the integration is a bit simpler. So that's to your point. It is true that even SAP, even ERPs, SAP, Infor, a number of ERP brands actually have different ERPs for different markets and different size markets. So we work with manufacturing companies. Certain ERPs are better for certain types of manufacturing, all the way from industrial equipment, right? What we call discrete manufacturing, all the way to process manufacturing. Some ERPs are better for process manufacturing, where others are better for discrete. And so even when an ERP we think of like as a generic thing, an ERP can have a specialty, as to your point, different view of solving that same problem. Because a bill of material for a process manufacturer or like a food and beverage is a bill of material, right? It's got to have ingredients, but how you go about it
Mm-hmm.
and the needs are going to be slightly different from a discrete manufacturing.
It goes back to what you're optimizing for, right? Like, I sometimes the devs used to kid me about saying that all the time. It was like a broken record saying, people would ask me, well, should I do this? Or should I do that? I'm like, well, it depends what you're optimizing for. It's always, it depends, right? And if you're optimizing, like if you're a huge company and you have a lot of resources, you may not necessarily optimize for, you're optimizing for maybe more accurate data or more data or more information or complexity of complexity that deal with lots of different variability. If you're a small, lean shop with a few people, you're optimizing for something completely different. You want fast. You want to be able to move things quickly. How many orders do you get a day? If I'm a manufacturing company, if I get 100 orders a day, it's a lot different than if I get 10,000. Like if I know with like if you're buying from Procter and Gamble, you better, or one of these large, I think GE is one of the big examples of this, is you have to buy through EDI. You just don't email orders to those guys. You have to submit them through EDI, like electronic data interchange, I believe, is what, to submit them, because otherwise they receive so many orders that they aren't going to pay to have staff just enter them. They have to be automatic, right? So the ability to support EDI would be a requirement for that company, but for somebody who makes like furniture, and, it puts out 100 orders a day, that's not a requirement because that's an overhead. It's an overhead of complexity they don't require. So like everything kind of has its place, right? And then what we do know is that a product that tries to do too many things tends to be not a very good product.
Right.
It tends to be pretty mediocre at all. It's even thing.
That's good. That's a good point. Yes, you had to stay to what you're best at, right? Stay in your lane, focus on what you can really deliver on, and do that really well. It's like a hammer. Hammer is really good to drive nails. Not so good for drive screws. I mean, you can do it, but you'll work awfully hard and you'll break a lot of screws on the process.
Exactly.
So Scott, what you obviously we had a reason about leveraging Elmo's experience and what they built, and then also the new ERP markets that we'll be able to service and help kind of to really grow CADTALK. So do you have in your mind, or that you can share here, kind of your long-term vision about why do we buy something versus build it? We've built so many integrations. It's incredible. Why not just build them all from scratch?
Well, I mean, this is kind of a design philosophy that I have. It's like that every feature starts with negative value, and even in integration, even if we've done something before, right? And there's always there's a thing that we also talk about, is that there's this idea of the great rewrite that every developer tries to avoid. And what you get through acquisition is you get to buy the collective knowledge of that system that's already been in place with customers. So instead of relearning some of these things and trying, essentially having a less than ideal product for a certain period of time, we were able to acquire those years of experience built into that code base, as well as the people who work there too. And then be able to move faster to the next stage, right? So we can, today, tomorrow, like literally overnight, we are able to get so many customers in those different markets that are proven and they work and they're established, and that's difficult to do from scratch. Without that, you've got to build it and then learn all those lessons and build them in and then do all that stuff. So you just it just slows everything down. So that what's one of the huge advantages of an acquisition is you can essentially just buy the experience. You can buy that collectively together. It comes with its own set of challenges, right? We have to figure out how does that, now I've got two products to work with, right? We got two products that we could offer. And then how do we, and there's some redundancy there. There's things that we have to go through and work with and things like that. But ultimately it will provide a better solution for the customers, and it allows us to kind of go to market quicker and also, serve more customers more quickly and not have to go through those bumps or repeat those bumps that has already been figured out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it allows us to kind of get a step up, as it were, right, on those integrations. I remember even myself when I started at CADTALK 10 years ago this year, you got a lot of lessons to learn, right? A lot of lessons to learn on how to integrate to even just to implement a customer. Like, yeah, we might have all the features and functionality, but then just all the lessons learned of like what's specific about this ERP. And as you know, each ERP is different and every software has limitations. So how do people deal with certain scenarios in this ERP because of some limitation or some other, not the limitation is the wrong word, but some design choice, right? So some a bit, and then other ERPs, it's like you update the bill of material and you just flag a different revision. Like you literally just overwrite a field. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
simple. And it's like, okay, there's no history there. So, but you don't know that until you dig into the ERP. And of course, in our business, revisioning and the changes is what matters. That's a huge
Mm-hmm.
part of what we do. And so learning, we don't have to learn those nuances. They're already a part of the product. They're already, as you said, they're already figured out. And we can apply our knowledge and the knowledge that the Elmo team has built over the years with the code to say, oh, we can, as you said, go to market tomorrow, continuing to go to market tomorrow with these.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and that's the beauty of it. Because like, to complete the thought that I had earlier about like features start with negative value, I didn't complete the thought on that, which was that, day one you build something, all you have is the cost it took to build it. And then you're like, oh, that's just the cost. It's not a big deal. But actually it's not. It's the disruption to the customer because they have to see, oh, now there's this new thing I got to deal with. And so everything that you decide to put into a product, you have to be very conscious that ROI is there because, it could actually get in the way. It actually could get, it actually cause issues. I mean, I've seen it with ERPs I've worked with in the past. It's like, like this version was really, really fast and we were able to do really cool things with it and all this stuff. And then like 2 versions later, it's like slowed down and it's harder to work with. And all of that was in the name of improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And yes, were there more features and could you do more things? Yes. But the daily using of the product deteriorated. And actually I was actually listening to something from Alex Ramosi the other day. And he said that like, I thought it was really, really fascinating. He was talking about like working with your team and we're always trying to introduce improvements. Like we should do this better. We should do this better. And I'm very much, it's one of our core values, radical responsibility. I'm sorry. Not radical responsibility, but is a relentless reinvention, which is the continuous improvement kind of idea. But sometimes things will improve just by being left alone because people are able to move faster because they're seeing consistency. Right. And so he was saying that every time you think about improvement, it better be like a 30 or 20, 30, 40% improvement. Don't be doing these 5% because the improvement itself will drop your team's efficiency by 20%.
Right.
While they relearn it, while they learn how to deal with the exception, the new thing. And I thought that was really fascinating. You're like, sometimes just leaving them alone, people will naturally start doing things faster and better because they're just people and they figure out a better way. And but if you keep changing what they're doing all the time, it actually disrupts them, and they never actually get the full momentum.
Right.
And I was like, oh, interesting. So maybe the best thing to do is to do nothing in some situations, which is very difficult to do.
It is.
And it's the same with product. I mean, sometimes the best thing you can do with a product is just make it faster, a little bit faster, right. Or sometimes it's just to do nothing and let people get used to it, so they can get the efficiencies. But if you're constantly changing everything, they're losing. Like I got this thing to save me time, and I got to relearn it every 2 days.
Right.
Am I really saving time?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, of course, technology moves so fast. I think I've heard that from customers and other, even in staff. Like, man, it just seems like everything changes, right? New look, even changing the UI. Changing just the UI, people can be disorienting.
Yeah, and then there's this balancing of like, well, we got to change something, otherwise, customer thinks they're not getting any value. They're paying all this money every year, and they should be seeing improvements, and they should. And there's not, we need to solve the problem better. But there's also the, like the thing that people really underestimate is this thing that's reliably working every day, doing the job that you need to do. And it has this like, there's no disruption. I mean, I think that like, I always think back to these they talk about these old green screen systems, ERPs from the old days. They're called AS400s. Like AS400 was the like computer system they ran on. And I mean, I think you'll even see ERPs people running today, these manufacturing companies from the 70s and 80s from these AS400, I think they're IBMs or something like that. And they were just green screen, cursor based, no point and click kind of systems. And I would ask people like, and you had to do everything on the keyboard, and it was just kind of, like, and I asked people like, why would you stay on these things this long? I mean, they're horrible. And they go, it never goes down. It always runs. It's so reliable because it's so simple. And then once you learn the keystrokes, you can move so fast because it's all keyboard. Your hands never leave the keyboard. But like the learning curve was high to get the keyboard down. But once you got it, you can move so fast. And it was like a different perspective. You're like, we changed it to make it easier for the person to get up and running, but then they were slow forever.
Right.
But then if we made it was a little harder to learn in the beginning, but it was simpler from the design standpoint, the reliability went up. And then once they got up to speed, they were so much faster. You could debate which one's better, right? Well, you have a lot of turnover in your company. You don't want you want the thing that's easy to get figured out. If you don't, it's not as much of it, then you want to make that person more efficient every day. But these are all, it depends what you're optimizing for. It goes back to the original statement.
Yeah, that reminds me, that story that you just told reminds me of, I bought a home, my first home, and the furnace in that home was an old Well-McLean furnace. It was one of those, not one of the octopus they talk about, those big arms, but it was a gas furnace and had a big burner on it. No blowers, a gravity fed furnace. And I go, man, this thing's been in here like 50, 60, 70 years. Like, why did they replace it? It's like, oh, I remember asking, I think maybe the realtor or maybe asking somebody, maybe been asking even our dad. And he says, well, that thing never breaks. It's simple, right? Super simple and easy to work on, it doesn't ever breaks because it had a pilot light. And it just was a big burner, right? Basically, it's like building a fire and you're in a firebox is all it was. And that tells me a lot about like what which is like, yes, it may have other disadvantages. It was really fuel inefficient. It took forever to get the heat up, but it always worked. It never went bad. As soon as you replace it with a modern furnace where you have electronics and you have, you can zone heat and all this different stuff, that increased complexity. But so the value of that new furnace had to be a lot more, which it was, right? Because you could have air conditioning and you could have, you could turn off your furnace at night or during the day, or, you could really adjust that and get it dialed in and got a benefit there. Sorry, I was kind of random, but that just reminded me.
No, I mean, you actually remind me. Actually, if we want, we can cut the end of this story I'm about to tell you, but like, it's a great story that it reminded me of when you're talking about the furnace, which was the U.S. first competition back when I was in high school. And it was, so back in high school, got me interested in engineering was this thing called the FIRST robotics competition. It's called FIRST now, but back then it was called US FIRST. And Procter & Gamble had sponsored two teams in Cincinnati, one from my high school, which is Aiken, and the other one was Walnut Hills. Walnut Hills was like the smart kids' high school in the city.
That's where I went. Thank you very much.
That is where you went. Yeah, you went there. So they sponsored these two teams. And this is 1994. And so it was national championship, like national competition. Like there was Texas Instruments and all these different companies were sponsoring teams. And then our machine, and what the idea was that we collected up all these soccer balls and you had to score them like in a goal. Like there was a goal and there was different color soccer balls. So each team had their own color and you could collect up your soccer balls and put them in the goal. And if they were in the goal, they were worth so many points. If they were in the bottom area, they were like 1 point and things like that. So what our machine did, it was like, it had these, looked like a big tank and it would go around and drive over the balls and all the balls would go up like a chute. And then we would sort the opponent's balls to the back of the chute and we would sort our balls to the front chute. So we actually could keep the opponents away from their own ball. We would keep their balls so they couldn't get to them. And then at the very last, like 10 seconds, we would drive over to the goal. And then we had this kind of like elevation thing, almost like a forklift with like cables, right? And it would kind of move up like this and kind of like a forklift with the cables. And then it would lean over with like a screw thing over top of the goal. And it would block the goal and put our balls right there so nobody else could get them in. And then we would win right at the end. And we were just killing everybody. I mean, just blowing everybody up, like just killing everybody. And I mean, it was just such fun to watch. The machine was so fast, it would literally smoke the carpet. It would take off like a wheelie and smoke the carpet and all this kind of stuff. And then the other Procter and Gamble team, which was the Walnut Hills team, their machine was like this little, like it used different kind of motors, and it was real slow, and it would like just creep around, and then it would pick up a ball and it put it in this little chute, like a roller coaster ride chute, right? Just cue them up, and they would drive right up to the edge of the goal, and it had like a little spring cam, and it would go like this, and the ball would fall in, and it would just shoot it perfect and go right into the thing. And it would just drive around, pick up the balls, and shoot it. I mean, we would just drive circles around this thing and make and just everything else. So we're in the last round or two, and I mean, we're like the favorite to win this thing. I mean, everybody's think we're going to win this thing because we're just killing everybody. And then we get down to the last thing. We're going up against Walnut Hills, which is like our rival because we're in the same city and everything. And we go out the gate. We're just doing all this stuff, and we're taking all the balls, and we're doing all the craziness, and then Walnut Hills is just kind of cruising around, shooting them in there. And, they got a few goals. And we run up onto the thing. We go up. We're going to make our goal right at the end. It gets up this close to scoring, and it locks up. And the little line on the pulley jumped and locked in there about that far from scoring. And we lost. We actually came in 5th in the country at that thing. And Walnut Hills went on to win the whole thing.
Man.
And I mean, huge disappointment. And it was funny because we actually improved the design later and got rid of the pulleys and used a different kind of material. And then we went and competed against them like in local exhibitions around the city because everybody was so proud of us and everything. And we beat them every single time, but the time that mattered.
Yeah.
And that was a great example of simplicity of design in action. Their machine didn't do a lot. It just did what it did perfect. And it's just a great example of that. And I think the same thing applies to software, and you just got to be careful of that. I mean, obviously it's really cool to build the thing that does everything and does all this crazy stuff. And when it works, it's pretty impressive. But sometimes the line jumps the track.
Right. No, that's powerful. I think it goes back to what we could also tie that to is like you learned, right? When it jumped the track, you said you fixed it, you changed that design, and then you beat him every time. So getting back to the kind of the acquisition, it's like you're leveraging someone else's learnings, right? Because ultimately software, any design is iterative. And every time you do it, you're learning something new. There's no way around it. And it also goes back to CADTALK's kind of philosophy. And I think Agni Link's philosophy too. One of the reasons I think we purchased them was that like the idea that always putting that stuff back into the product, because those lessons that you learn, hard fought, go back into the product. And so to keep improving on it. But to your point, you got to start off simple.
Yeah, simple scales. Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah, no, that's a good story. Yeah, I remember. It's what's funny is that by funny I don't mean funny haha, but funny strange a little bit is that when you're old, as you're middle age now, you and I are both middle age, and you look back on your life and you go, wow, that was like a seminal moment. Or that was a powerful, not sometimes life-defining, right? A really life-defining kind of event or moment. But at the time, you don't even realize it, right? You don't even know that that's a part of your origin story, really, or part of, what I'm saying, like your superhero thing. You just don't know. Yeah. So that's fun. No, that's fun. Well, good. So before we get too long in the tooth here, so what's next up? We just announced this acquisition and kind of what's next, right? Is anything going to change for our customers, our partners, for Elmo's customers, for Elmo's partners? People might ask, hey, will anything change or am I going to get a different product or a new product? What can you say to that?
I think for the short term, it's going to be the same things the same great product that you're used to now. I think that, over time, I think that we have plans to take the best of these these products and bring them together. But there's going to be a transition there to do that. It won't be an overnight thing because our priority first is to keep customers running and happy and using and getting the benefit. And anything that we do too quickly would be a disruption. It would cause we don't want to wreak havoc with our customers. So we're going to do a slow movement the plan is to only to only improve what we do, not to detract from it. And so, yeah, I think that's the eventual goal. I mean, and that's the long-term goal, but, and just, get more, essentially do a better job with the customers and get more customers and to be able to serve more markets with some of these great ideas. Yeah.
No, I think that's right. Like we'll be able to go to more markets, but continue to serve our customers, really enhance our customers because we'll gain that knowledge, right? We'll gain that knowledge of an experience of that whole other organization be able to share across the board. We can share with Elmo's customers, and Elmo's customers can share with us. We'll get new learnings. So, and then different perspective, as you said. So similar, like when you go, I remember when this kind of goes like when you travel abroad, right? You go to a new place, you get a new perspective, and then you bring that perspective back home and you incorporate it into your thought process. And this is kind of like that. And I think to your point, our goal is to keep customers happy, help allow them to continue to leverage the software, get the value out of it, get great service, great product, and continue on. And then over time, as you said, we can leverage those two different products, take the ideas from the best ideas and merge them if that's what happens, or keep them separate, right? All that depends upon what we find out, right? Since this acquisition is relatively new, we're still learning ourselves, getting to know the customers, getting to know the staff, getting to know all of those things.
Absolutely.
So Scott, just kind of wrap up. We're gonna, over the next kind of months and days and months, we're going to focus on supporting the customers, getting to know the customers. We'll continue on trying to deliver the same value and service that we do today, but not just for CADTALK, but also for that AgniLink product and the markets that they serve. And then in terms of long-term plans, we talked about a little bit about we may or may not integrate the two products, but anything else in your mind about, from being a product guy yourself, anything else that you'd like to share? Maybe not, in terms of where you see the product going, or kind of a vision for the future in terms of integration.
I think nothing. I mean, nothing we want to necessarily share on the podcast at this point. You can't give away all the secrets, but I think there's a lot. I would say that I would kind of tease that there's some really exciting things coming on the line in the next few years around integration. That's going to improve a lot. That's going to really impress a lot of people. And what we can do and how much faster and better these types of solutions are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like technology. I hear it from customers and partners, and how technology is moving so fast, especially, recently. I was working with, ChatGPT today, and I was, looking at AI. It's really, these powerful tools out there. No one knows what it's going to be like. You listen to enough podcasts, the sky is falling, of course, and the AI overlords are going to take over. But no, I think there's really exciting opportunities coming up about how to leverage newer technologies and improve really use cases and experiences for our customers. Because at the end of the day, it's got to add value, right? It's got to do something that the customer wants you to do. That there's a pain point that they want to solve, something that makes it easier, faster for the customer. Otherwise, it's all hype, right? Otherwise, it's a bunch of techno nerds, of which we are a part, sitting around going, isn't this so cool, right? If it doesn't solve that pain point, it doesn't really provide value. So I'm looking forward to seeing how, with Elmo's expertise and with CADTALK's experience, how we can leverage, upcoming technologies, but those technologies have to deliver value for the customer, because as I would always tell, like, we're not in the market to sell shelfware, right? We want to provide value and help our customers deliver their products to their customers, because ultimately all of our customers have their own customers.
You got it.
Well, Scott, that finishes up for me. Anything else you'd like to say about the acquisition, other than we're excited about it, and we're kind of status quo at the moment. Things are going to continue on. Really, as I think you were remarking before we joined, is like, whenever you would hear about an acquisition, you'd say, anything going to change? No, just the name, the name on the bill or whatever, the name on the sign and outside, and you say, yep, pretty much, and that's for now. That's all that's going to change. So that's good. Yeah. Anything else you have any insights or anything else you have to offer?
Yeah, I think that's all I got today. Yeah.
Well, Scott, good glad to be back in Cincinnati, and you and there in Northern Kentucky. Glad to be back from the West Coast after that 8 to 10 days of traveling for you and I both. So thanks a lot, Scott, for taking the time today. And this was episode 1 of the season 2. So we made it to season 2. We are now in the top 5% of all podcasts. We're in season 2. We've gotten on 25 or 30 episodes. So Scott, I really appreciate you sharing the time with me, and we'll catch you next time.